Thank you very much for that. We've really gotten off to an excellent start for the first day of the conference, and I'm now very happy to change our attention from Switzerland to the Philippines. The Institute for Cultural Diplomacy has also a special relationship with the Philippines. I'm grateful that their former foreign minister, Ambassador Domingo Albert, is a very active member of our advisory board. She was recently also the ambassador of the Philippines to Germany, and we still actually have a remnants of the big art exhibition from the Philippines hanging in the ICD House of Arts and Culture. Ambassador Albert actually brought 2 tons of artwork from Manila in honor of actually the national celebration of the Philippines 2 years ago. So we have a permanent representative of the Philippines in our ICD House. So in that sense, I'm very, very happy to have the chance to introduce to you Her Excellency Ambassador Marilyn J. Alarilla. She is currently the ambassador from the Philippines to Turkey, and I'd like to say a few words about her background so you can understand also the great perspectives and experiences that she is bringing with her. Ambassador Alarilla studied an advanced course in diplomatic studies at the Center for Diplomatic and Strategic Studies in Paris from 1994 until 1995. She served as Minister and Counselor General for the Philippines Embassy in Switzerland from 1999 until 2005. She had a position as Director General of the ASEAN Philippines and Assistant Secretary of the Office of ASEAN Affairs from 2008 until 2009. As Ambassador of the Philippines, she served for the Philippines Embassy in the Lao People's Democratic Republic from 2009 until 2011. And in 2011, the ambassador received the appointments as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary from the President Benigno S. Aquino III. After receiving the appointment from President Aquino in 2011, she began serving as the ambassador of the Philippines to Turkey. Her lecture topic today is the role of civil society in promoting human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Her Excellency Ambassador Marilyn J. Alarilla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donfried, and good morning to everyone. So the topic of my talk this morning is on civil society and how it promotes human rights. The content will be focusing on the background of civil society, an awakened civil society, is it a boon or a bane? And then we'll have example of course, in the Philippines, you have people power movement, and open government partnership, and in ASEAN at the regional level, how do we promote human rights when we have different political systems and different religious systems? And of course, we have the challenges and promise of cooperation between civil society and the public sector. On the background, everyone knows that the social contract concept of Rousseau has been a good foundation for political basis on execution of general will based on what the people desires. And this social contract is the source of legitimate authority of pursuing common good. And at the end of the Cold War, we have seen the wave of democratization, transition in all parts of the world, in Eastern Europe, in Africa, in our part of the world. And there has been a good role of civil society, whether it is natural or whether it's really springboard from the grassroots approach. But in the Philippines, even before the political concept of Rousseau, we have from the anthropological or cultural and social perspective, the natural inclination for people to cooperate. So I think it's a social imperative for human beings, and in the Philippines, we have what we call mutual help or self-help during early part of our history, and it is until now going on. So people who are in need, whether they're under disasters or so on, neighbors and families band together for mutual aid, even until now when we have disaster, or even Filipinos who are in cities or abroad, it's still ongoing. So the concept of civil society had this fertile landscape in our culture, so that even on the political issue, on the professional or what we call associational life in all sectors of society, whether it's for labor or student or political, economic. So there is this tendency to group together and band together at the lower level, and then this will form, go up, consolidate, merge, and it will become a potent force because in terms of number, they're already quite huge. So there is this movement all over. And we had two examples cited in our history. In 1896, our revolution from Spain is an example of this associational group of people cooperating together. And more recently, in our 1896, what we call an example of a peaceful revolution during recent times. And this time, there are many factors that led to it. It's not a short-term or immediate success. From 1983 to 1986, there were almost like, because at that time it was under a dictatorship, so people cannot really express themselves and they have to be very careful in expressing political opinion. But in terms of spreading awareness, it was done from what we understand from like a simultaneous dissatisfaction from many sectors of our society. Like, for example, for the business sector, the stock market was really down and there was no business coming in. So there were trigger points for mass discontent on the part of the people. And of course, there are segments who are after social justice. And these are some of our religious people. And at that time, from 83 to 86, it's multi-religious. We are predominantly Christian, predominantly Catholic, but people from all faiths, Christian faith, Catholic, and even Muslim, grouped together. And for several, at least 2 years, there were seminars, workshops going on in churches and in public municipal buildings, of course, are under the radar without the government knowing it. We even had the example of Filipino nuns seeking the assistance of some leaders, Protestant leaders from Europe, who has been doing this kind of work in Latin America to come to the Philippines to do this lectures or talks. Of course, there was the inspiration of Gandhi for the peaceful revolution and from the US of the civil rights movement. So it was more for the non-violent, peaceful kind of revolution that we were advocating at that time. But the success factor that we can see from that experience is that it's multi-sectoral. There was dissatisfaction on all sectors. And then the ruling party or the people in government also were not that united. There came a point when there were also signs of differences between those who are ruling. And there were some dramatic events. The ruling government at the time tried to minimize dissent by calling a snap election, but people who were counting the votes, the computer people who were counting the votes at the time sensed the fraud and they walked out, which subsequently triggered the military revolution led by Mr. Ramos, and then the people subsequently arrived. So in a peaceful manner, there was this change. However, although we had this political change, there are now talks of what do we gain from it? What are the dividends? Do we have any, assuming that you changed government and you were able to do this in a peaceful manner without bloodshed, were you able to succeed, give a better life for the people? What happened after that political transformation? So we are now learning our lessons that institutions have to be in place. And under our president now, we have what we call Open Government Partnership, which was initiated by 8 governments, and it's now ongoing. In partnership as well, now with civil society, they are our partners in implementing what we call the Open Government Program. So this was launched in November by 8 governments, including Indonesia, Brazil, Norway, and all the other governments. And the objective is for civil society groups So we have identified several civil society groups, and they sit together with government representatives. We had this meeting in September and November last year to map out transparency in government, for example, budgeting, contract awarding, because one of our problem in terms of raising the standard of living is leakages from our revenue collection and from our spending. So that's why we cannot give out the total maximum of what our budget is in terms of public services. So in order to cut leakages, we are now having this program of open government partnership. So part of this will be, the aim is to promote transparency, fight corruption, harness new technology. And we are aiming for fiscal transparency, timely publication of budget documents, information law on public's right for information, public disclosure of income and assets, and openness to citizen participation. So now is April 17. There is a meeting going on in Brazil on this, and the Philippines is represented. And in that meeting, as opposed to usual meetings where you have government representatives only at the podium, so we have both civil society and government, both on equal partnership for the conference. And the objective is to recognize new commitments on participatory and accountable leadership, so that our public sector cooperates with the civil society. So we have many civil society, like the umbrella organization of civil society is a partner here. We have civil society on transparency, what we call also development NGO for SMEs. We have our business sector, Makati Business Club. We have Integrity and National Competitiveness Council. So the objective is contracts, budget, expenses, revenues, collection, they're all open and everybody can do it. And some, right now, we're also trying to have online. Some government at the provincial level and municipal level can also publish online the receipt from collections of taxes, as well as budget, salaries, and so on, and also projects. So that way, the public can monitor where the money goes. So we have some initial feedback now on this attempt that the biggest sector where we have this issue is the infrastructure construction. So it's very sensitive because that's the number one. You favor some contractors, or you do this, or you merge some projects. So our feedback now is that from these few months, at the national level, we have measured some success, percentage of reduction, but still at the local or local level, it's a little bit more difficult because the local politicians expect to have the money because they spend so much for their constituencies. So that one, we're still trying to address. But we think that our present government is quite serious, and the campaign for the last year for this election has been based on anti-corruption drive, and so there is this seriousness. Now, with respect to cooperation of civil society on human rights at the regional level, at ASEAN, as you know, ASEAN is composed of 10 countries with different government system, political system. So some governments are democratic system, but the others, we still have some like Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar that are still communist and socialist. So we have to cooperate together and agree on many statements and many programs. So some people criticize us saying that it's the least common denominator, but just the same, we have to advance and we have to progress. And we think that for the past 40 years or 20 years since the last 4 members were in, we have demonstrated some progress with the participation of those who do not have the same political system as ours. Now, with respect to human rights and civil society is, even the word itself before is taboo in meetings. Even civil society itself, that's the term, you cannot mention it because some countries will object because they say their government objects. So we use another thing, like for example, public organization or NGOs. For them, let's say civil society is a Western concept and we're not supposed to use it in our meetings. Even human rights also has some connotations and people shy away from using it. But in 1993, if you may recall, there was this meeting in Vienna for 2 weeks where we had this conference on rights and democracy, and that was in June. And after that, with this World Conference on Human Rights, with over 171 states attending, NGOs and states, over 7,000 participants, and supposedly the largest meeting on human rights. So the declaration included that human rights and fundamental freedoms are objectives of the UN, and the possibility of establishing regional and sub-regional arrangement for the promotion and protection of human rights where they do not already exist should be considered. So that was in June 1993, and next month, July 1993, the ASEAN foreign ministers were meeting in Singapore, so they had to have a reaction whether to accept it or not to accept it, but they just have to react. So what the ASEAN foreign ministers did was, everyone welcomed human rights and fundamental freedoms, but we retained, because ASEAN always retains our own concept, our own balance between rights of individual and rights of the community, and that we will maintain respect for national sovereignty, territorial integrity, non-interference in internal affairs. But academics and NGOs and civil society members still consider it a victory because there was this mention and support in spite of some reservation. So that was in 1993, and subsequently we have the ASEAN Interparliamentary Organization, who also in 93 endorsed it, and then the same year civil society formed the working group on ASEAN human rights mechanism to follow, because in our region we don't have this regional mechanism, but in others, in Africa they have already, Europe they have. So we have to start, and if the government sector will not initiate, so it's the duty of the civil society sector to do it. So that's why they started this working group. And so after a few years, 97, we had this ASEAN Vision 2020, and we did 98 mention, again, reiterated mention on human rights. Well, anyway, so finally, in 2009, there was, after a span of a few years, so the ASEAN ministerial meeting, our foreign ministers agreed to have they agreed to establish, so step by step, they agreed to establish an ASEAN human rights mechanism. And in 2009, also finally, we have what we call an ASEAN Intergovernmental Mechanism on Human Rights. So we call it intergovernmental because in some countries, civil society like Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, this human rights mechanism is with the private sector. With other countries, understandably, like Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, Cambodia, it's within the government or their academe. But the fact that they agreed is a step-by-step concession. So now, although we are being criticized again that our mechanism is only for promotion and there is no protection aspect and there is no investigative power, but still we think the moral or peer pressure could also work instead of putting it in writing that you cannot impose, because you put something in writing but you cannot implement it, but you have sort of peer-to-peer exchange, yes, between you, then it could be more successful. And there are other two sectors where the whole group agreed it was easier to agree the Asean Committee on Promotion of Human Rights for Women and Children. So that was in 2007, because there is an economic impact if you have products being produced by children, and some people, their advocacies against labor of children, so it has economic impact on your products. So that it was easier to do this. It's not merely political, but there's also an economic implication. You say, for example, you are producing or you're under investigation for producing products made of child labor. So you can counter that, oh, we're a member of this commission, we're investigating all these abuses against children. So, and also it's less controversial than the whole human rights term itself. So it's more manageable. Anyway, so we are, shall we say, a work in progress, and we are partnering with civil society and the academe to do this for all our nations. And incidentally, there is also a European footprint in all of this, because I think in 1975, you have the Helsinki Accords, and you had 3 baskets. First is on this political legitimizing of the territorial boundaries. Second basket is on the economic, technical, political. And the third basket is really the humanitarian, where it includes the people-to-people exchange, press freedom, and so on. So since that was in 1975, there was this lag time, and then you had the implosion of the Soviet Union. And for some people, that was also like, can you say, an example or a model that you start from this humanitarian aspect, and it could lead to something. So, well, personally, when I was doing work on it, I was reading the Helsinki Accord. So I was looking at the 3 baskets, all of these, 1, 2, 3, and then what analysts say has been the impact on this then USSR, and how unpredictable consequences came about from that agreement. Anyway, we think now that in our region, there are some softening of attitude. Like, for example, for Myanmar has agreed to let Aung San Suu Kyi participate in the election. It may be, what do you call it, maybe just a small concession to for the lifting of sanctions, because, and then also maybe looking at a more how the world changes now, and more attuned to what's going on in China, you know, balancing the influence of China with other countries. But I think we also have, of course, the flow of communication, openness, and some people, we think that the mere fact that Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam are part of ASEAN, and they join our meetings, they visit our countries, they like to stay in our countries, they like to shop, and our people are become friends. The political difference has narrowed, and it's a good confidence building exercise. Anyway, so, but all of this would not have happened without the academe in all countries, and also the participation of the civil society. Of course, there is a strong support from counterparts in other countries. Like, I was ambassador in Laos, and many NGOs there are heavily supported by European and American and other partners. And in Laos, even those that are of Lao partnership or Lao association, everyone has to register. So you have to have a permit and all that. But the fact that you're allowed to meet, and you're allowed to register, and you're allowed to do the activity, it's some step ahead already compared to, let's say, past 10 years. And I can see the seriousness of the officials in complying with, let's say, our ASEAN agreements. They will meet at the national level, provincial, local level, to see to it that everyone understands what's going on and what they have to comply with. So we are quite optimistic that with these exchanges, we can have better maybe of this protection and promotion of human rights. One area that's still ongoing in our region is the protection of migrant workers' rights. We're still working on the Declaration on Migrant Workers' Rights. Some of us have many workers abroad. Philippines has many, Thailand has, and some are receiving countries, what we call receiving countries, like Singapore has many migrant workers, Malaysia also. So there are some issues that we have to settle with each other. Anyway, so in conclusion, so we think there are many promising areas in several areas of cooperation, but there are also challenges. And some challenges would be, well, anyway, first on the manner of cooperation. So there are 5 ways that governments cooperate, or the other way around, civil society cooperates with the government. If they are part of the decisions of the government is making, which is what we are trying to do with the Open Government Partnership. We try to have the civil society as part of our government partnership in transparency. We think, personally, I think it's a way of complying. Sometimes the government only may not be that strong, but if you have an outside group who can be more motivated or will be more active, it could be a catalyst for a better performance. So second will be what we call contractual relationship. I think this is done, for example, when the government or international organization like the World Bank get an NGO and they assign the work. And then you have contributing, you contribute to policy dialogue. We have this example internally when we have our business sector contribute into policies, or we have complementary working when you have parallel, you are separate entities, but you work within the same system on same issues and relationship. A good example on our part will be the corporate social responsibility projects of our private sector. Then, of course, you have the confronting or contesting area. This is also many areas we are not in total agreement with each other, like, for example, labor groups or those who advocate for more rights. And some challenges would be how to maintain independence and flexibility for the CSO, civil society, without undermining their strength. And then how to also improve further their advocacy in national and global sphere, because we think they have something to contribute. So when I was Director General for the Philippines for ASEAN, I always make it a point to invite as not only government, but civil society, academe, centers of excellence. And then if there are opportunities to attend in seminars or training abroad, I don't choose people from a unit or from the government. I choose people from the academe or people from civil society, because it gives them a chance. And sometimes if you get from the academe, they will study. They will really study the issue, and they will profit more from the experience. And then, of course, how to facilitate multi-sectoral cooperation, both at the national, in our case, regional level, or maybe even international level. But we see that there is big potential for partnership between civil society and the government, not only in human rights, but of course now it's now broader, because we have human security, freedom from fear, freedom from want, and in our ASEAN, we call it comprehensive security, including all the transnational issues. So I think we're just scratching the surface of this civil cooperation partnership with government. We'll see more in the future. Depends on us on how to handle it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We're now very happy to take a few questions or comments from you. Who would like to go first?
I'm Professor Temisa Ebijowa. I'm a professor of moral philosophy. Yeah, this question borders on the relevance of civil society to building institutions. Because I feel it is after you have built the institutions in your country, my country, that we can begin to think about the promotion of human rights. Because if institutions are not properly built, you cannot command the commitment of the citizens. For example, you talked about leakages. We have leakages also in Nigeria and in some other developing societies. But that's the major problem, because it makes people to lose confidence in the state and thereby withdraw their commitment to the state, hate the state, get frustrated, and become agents of politicians to destroy the state. And that's what is happening in many countries in Africa, especially in Nigeria. Because the political elites corner the few dollars, naira, pounds, or whatever that's available to the state for themselves and their cronies, and they are unable to provide for the common good of the people. And that is what is responsible for most of the crises we have in Nigeria. But I think if institutions are built, then we'll be able to check the leakages. And then we'll begin to talk about integration. And that's the reason why, using the analogy of the grass growing and the seeds not working. In some of these places, the grass are just not growing. That there's a conflict between the ant and the seed. So we are not talking about grass growing now. That problem, we are still at a level of the seed trying to germinate because the ants are eating practically all the seeds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. We think that's a serious one. Institutions should be well developed. Basically, we think also it's a factor of education. The citizens should be educated, and then information should be flowing. So that's why we try just a specific example of budgeting. Our own Department of Interior and Local Government has been instituting what we call open system of budgeting. Some of the cities, there's strong resistance to this. Some cities comply. Some cities either if you start with the capability of, let's say, the computerization, training the people inside to do the computerization, because everything will be online. And then one local government is already online, so everybody can access and look, what is the budget, where does it go, what are the projects, how much, who got the project. But some local government, they don't want to share this. They don't even want to share the revenue. What are the sources of revenue? Is it from licenses or from taxes? And let's say, who paid the licenses? Who paid the taxes? How much did that one businessman pay in terms of taxes? Is that the right amount? So you can go through all, you can test all of the transactions if it is published. And then in terms of disbursement, who are on the payroll? How much are they getting? The relatives of the politicians, are they getting salary? It will all be disclosed. So there is a huge resistance. Only the leader who has cleaned up his unit will be willing to do this. And you go to the other disbursement, aside from, let's say you buy the car, how many cars, what brand, what price? There is also, you can also see how much they buy the car, and then people will complain, no, you can get it at this amount, why buy it at that amount? What are the projects? Who got the projects? Is it a friend of the governor, a friend of the representative? So it's a big help for us to do this, but there is strong resistance. But we are trying to do this. That's just one example of institutional capability. But on a broader sense, we believe that if we have a more educated population and we have information flowing, there will be more awareness. So it's also a factor of our level of education, and to a certain degree, our level of national income, national development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd suggest we take maybe one final question before the break, and then during the break we can informally continue the dialogue. But we are running a little behind schedule, so if we could bring the microphone to the back. I see a hand. Please.
Okay, thank you very much for your talk. My name is Professor Pauline Collentine. I'm from from the UK, and I'm a professor of religion and society. You mentioned in your talk about the role of particularly the Christian churches in the Philippines during the 1980s, and I recall the contribution they made in contributing that people power movement. I was wondering to what extent today in the Philippines, not only Christianity but the other religions that you mentioned were actually being listened to in the public sphere by government.
Yes, thank you. We have our inter-religious. We have particularly about 7% of our population are Muslims. So we all have the dialogue, and we have a dialogue with our between the leaders, Christian, religious, interfaith. In all our public events, when we start a public event, we have the Christian, the priest, and then we have the Muslim imam saying the prayer, and it's accepted in our society. For example, we are predominantly Catholic, at least 75 or 80% Catholic, but we had our Christian, one of our president. Fidel Ramos is not a Catholic, but is a Christian, and it does not really. We just take it normally. We believe if the person is a Christian, can be a Christian. Even the Muslim in our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have Muslim colleagues. So we just accept it normally. And it's a private matter. We think if they belong to that faith, or if they are Buddhist, it's his business to be a Buddhist. We, in terms of religion, we have accepted, we have Sharia law in our Mindanao region for provinces that are predominantly Muslim. We have Sharia law. We think that the problems in the South for us is more economic. We have given political space in terms of governance, in terms of ownership, in terms of economic opportunities. But we think now that it's more the problem of, I think it's not only in our country, but in many other countries, like we have many kidnappings, several kidnappings is for economic motivation. So it's still happening at this time.
All right, well, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for a very thought-provoking presentation, for continuing the tradition of ICD's cooperation with the Philippines, and I think having given some very important perspectives, in particular from Asia, which I think is very important also for the context of this conference. So if you could please join me in expressing our sincere gratitude to Her Excellency Ambassador Alarilla. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.